Hey, regular 4xe fans, are you excited for episode 5 of Ask the Expert? I hope you are. And we have our expert, Dan Fry. If you don't have any clue who Dan Fry is, well, you're on episode 5, and that's why you don't go back to episode 1. You'll learn all about him. He's pretty awesome. And I hear he's good at frisbee golf. Is that true at all? I don't know.
I haven't played frisbee or frisbee golf in probably
That was a
25 years.
That was a
But
stupid
yeah,
introduction. I'll
no,
do
we'll go with
another.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
expert level.
How about Twinkies? How are you on Twinkies? Do you like Twinkies?
They're delicious.
Are you
Who doesn't like Twinkies?
are you a Twinkies or a Zinger person?
Oh gosh, I think I might be a Swiss cake roll person
Ooh,
more so.
going with the third answer. I like that. Okay, so the reason for this is partly to get to know Dan better, the brains, the intellect, the amazing guiding force behind the development of the Wrangler 4xe. So and of course, we like to know more about Dan, but we also want to know more about the regular 4xe, right? That's what we're really here for. So we got these questions. I don't know if I want to say it that way because we want to know Dan. We like Dan, right? I mean, that's
I, Chris, I gotta interrupt you. I am by no means the Wrangler 4xe development team. There's thousands of people who made this car happen and who have put in a lot of nights and weekends and 8 days a week type men and women who really cared deeply in Auburn Hills and Toledo, of course, and in Turin, really right around the world, who've just put in a whole lot of effort to try to get this product to earn all of the accolades that it's been fortunate to receive.
that's
And
right.
I'm really flattered that I get to speak to you about what all of those wonderful men and women have
Yeah,
done.
and it's important to note. No one person could ever develop any of this stuff. Kind of like when we flew to the moon and develop amazing things, it always takes a lot of people behind the scenes that we never get to thank. So now, right at this point, we all say thank you, thank you, thank you.
And for the next hour, I will read their names one at a time.
So we've got all these questions that came from the regular 4xe fans group, and we're just going to jump right into these and try to answer these as much as we can. So this is a tough one. Some people have reported they've experienced transmission overheating while off-roading. And in both cases that this person knows about, the drivers report that they were in four high. Can you speak to the difference between the dual clutch transmission setup versus a more typical setup?
Yeah, no, great question, and not a tough one at all. I think it's really important that folks understand. You get into a Wrangler 4xe and you see an automatic transmission shifter, but it is a little bit different than what we'd say a torque converter automatic or a conventional automatic transmission vehicle. Some aspects of the driveline are a lot more like a manual transmission vehicle. Even though it's all automatically controlled. And what I'm referring to is what's called the integrated launch element, or ILE clutch. And so the way the Wrangler 4xe driveline works is there's a gas-powered engine, right? The 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine. And then there's these two electric drive motors. The primary electric drive motor that propels the vehicle is the P2 electric motor. And then both of those, let's call them actuators, can be linked together, and then they flow power through this ILE clutch. And what that means is that when you're launching the vehicle from rest, actually the engine is at its idle speed or above its idle speed. The P2 motor is at an idle speed. It's not starting from zero speed. And the ILE clutch is slipping in order to launch the vehicle, because obviously at zero speed, the wheel speed is zero. And so the back end of the driveline is at zero speed. The front end of the driveline has some speed. And in a conventional vehicle, that differential speed would be taken up in the torque converter. In the 4xe, it's taken up by that slipping ILE clutch. Slip.
Because without that,
heat.
the tires would just break loose and spin like crazy. I mean, we have to have that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just to have the engine running and the vehicle stationary, there has to be some compliant member, right? Something that has a different input speed than an output speed. so the tires aren't spinning when the car is stopped. Otherwise, you'd hit the brakes to stop the vehicle and you'd stall the engine. So obviously, we don't want that to happen. So we have this ILE clutch, and that ILE clutch it's a wet clutch. It's in an oil bath, but it behaves broadly similarly to the dry clutch that you might have in a manual transmission Wrangler. So one of the things that you learn quite quickly, driving a manual transmission Wrangler is not the easiest thing to do off-road. One of the things that you learn very quickly when doing that is that gearing is your friend. So you'll always use very low gears, and clutch slip off-road is almost never a good thing. It almost never helps you get over anything. That's the reason why we have such low crawl ratios, up to 100 to 1 in the newly announced recon package Wranglers, is because it allows you to let that clutch out and drive the vehicle very slowly with the clutch not slipping. And that's the same thing that you want in the 4xe. The difference is you don't have a clutch pedal, right? If you will, the computer's brain is on the clutch pedal, or the computer's foot is on the clutch pedal. And consequently, it's easier to make a mistake and use too high of a gear. And by that, I mean to use 4 high in a situation where I'm driving 1 mile an hour, 2 mile an hour, 3 mile an hour. And if you think about driving a manual transmission vehicle at 1 mile an hour, your left leg would get tired very quickly because you're modulating that clutch all the time. You're slipping the clutch, which is generating heat and wear, and it's not great for that clutch. Now, the 4xe has some pretty sophisticated electronics in it, and it's monitoring the temperature of that clutch disc. And consequently, what you're seeing when it's I'm worried my transmission is overheating, that's the transmission protecting itself. If you're in a situation where you're slipping that drive clutch for a long enough time that it gets hot, before there's any danger of it actually doing damage to itself, the vehicle is going to intervene, open up that clutch, and in most cases pop a message on the instrument cluster that says, hey, you need to drive above 5 miles an hour or shift to 4 low, because really, if you're driving 1, 2, 3 miles per hour off road, you're probably going over some pretty tricky obstacles. Not only are you going to get better transmission thermal performance by shifting to 4 low, you're also going to get better drivability. And really, that's a situation where you want 4 low. I mean, you paid for it. You bought a Wrangler instead of less capable vehicles with the 2-speed transfer case. And in the situation where you're experiencing that transmission overheat, you're probably better off in 4 low. I would be shocked if somebody saw this in a stock Wrangler 4xe and 4 low. Just to give some context, we had a Sahara, Wrangler 4xe Sahara on the Rubicon Trail with 35-inch tires on it. So aftermarket, upgraded tire size, taller gearing, and that vehicle was able to complete the Rubicon Trail without overheating its transmission because it was using 4 low at appropriate times. So that's the trick, and it's just a Jeep thing. It's just a Wrangler thing. It's frankly, it's just an off-road driving thing. If you want to drive really slowly, you want low range.
Okay. I learned something. I was taking notes. I don't know if you saw me. I wasn't distracted. I was taking notes. So, and I saw that for myself when on Ophir Pass, I was doing some shifting at different times between the two, and I was wondering if that was good or bad. I think I actually did the right thing. That's interesting. Give myself a pat on the back.
Yeah, so, the vehicle will talk back to you. In most cases, if you're going too fast and low range, you'll hear a lot of noise from the driveline, and you might encounter the speed limiter. If you're going too slow and high range, that's a situation where you might not notice unless you've done a lot of driving in low range.
Okay, that's great information. So somebody asked the question, and I think behind the question under the question of this, a lot of people have concerns about the lifespan of the batteries. What are the, that's a big question in EVs and plug-in hybrids. And so they asked the question, is there a secret maintenance mode to check we have to say it like this, is there a secret maintenance mode to check the system and the battery health?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you can do. Obviously, the Uconnect app. I know some people have had difficulty getting it to run well, and obviously that's something we're always working through and trying to improve every day. But there are some good pieces of information available in the Uconnect app. Anything from your current battery level to your maintenance interval, stuff like that. Also, using the off-road pages in the head unit, you can monitor temperatures and driveline states, all kinds of stuff like that. But as far as diagnostics, I think this person's really asking more about, hey, I want to read out a trouble code. I want to know software levels. That's particularly for a complex, relatively new vehicle on the market like the Wrangler 4xe. The dealership is the right place to go with questions like that.
Yep. One question was, does the electric motor allow the Wrangler to crawl slower? I think we alluded to that, but there's definitely some advantages to the electric motor.
Absolutely. I mean, the torque delivery from low speeds is sort of what a lot of people think of when they think about electric off-roading, is all the torque from 0 RPM. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that motor is still operating through a slipping clutch. So actually, when the vehicle speed is 0, the motor is turning in most cases, and the clutch is what's taking up the difference. But that clutch engages very, very early on in the drive, particularly if you're in 4 low. And then you've got all the advantages of electric powertrain, which is to say very low latency torque and the silent operation, which if you haven't had a chance to go EV off-roading, the torque is cool for sure, and obviously with the ratios of the Wrangler, especially the Rubicon model 4:1 rock direct T case and 410 gears, you can crawl along low and slow, and you got torque for days. But you really can't miss the silent off-roading. It sounds like some flowery stuff, but like you hear the gravel crunching under the tires, or hear the birds in the trees, or the stream that's over the next hill. For me, it really adds to the Jeep experience to be kind of closer to nature.
So speaking of sounds, this is a great segue. I love it when this stuff happens. Somebody asked the question. This is my first Jeep, and I'm loving it, but there is a lot to learn, and it's a lot different from their Prius. Oh, we mentioned another manufacturer. The Jeep makes a number of rather loud noises, not the pedestrian warning system. Some are groaning noises, and I believe they said, I think they went on to talk about the power steering. What all are we hearing? This is a two-part question. What all are we hearing? I'm assuming air conditioning pump, power steering pump, cooling system for the thermal management for the battery. What else are we hearing in there? And then part B of that question, you pull in your garage. And this caught me off guard the first time it happened. You pull in the garage and you're sitting there checking your email or whatever. And after you're sitting there for a couple minutes, all of a sudden this water dripping sound starts happening. It sounds like, I imagine it's like gears unmeshing and solenoids opening. What is all that? So the noises during operation and then after, what are those? What are we hearing?
Yeah, it's funny, right? I'll probably get flamed for this, but it's not that the Wrangler 4xe makes more noise than other cars. It's that it makes less noise than other cars. So you hear all the stuff that you haven't been hearing. Yeah. But no, you covered most of them, Chris. Almost everything. I think the ones, especially now, it's hot outside. People are hearing their air conditioning compressor. A couple points on that. We have a speed cap implemented on that air conditioning compressor because we know that it's not the quietest compressor ever. If it's less than 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside, then your air conditioning compressor shouldn't be objectionably loud. And if it is, even though it's cooler than 90 F outside, then that might be cause for servicing the vehicle. If it's over 90 F outside, then the cap is removed because cabin cool down is the top priority, and we figure chances are you probably have your windows up. If your air conditioning is on and it's 95 degrees out, probably your windows are closed and the noise isn't going to bother you too much. So that's the air conditioning compressor, and it's kind of a reciprocating noise. Chris, you also mentioned the power steering pump. And by the way, those two, air conditioning and power steering, are super easy to identify for yourself, because obviously if you turn off the air conditioning and the noise stops, well, that was your AC compressor. If you steer the steering wheel and the noise starts, well, that's your power steering pump. You can hear that from outside the vehicle. Like I said before, it's exactly the same noise as a conventional Wrangler, but of course there's less masking from the combustion engine. And so that's the reason why sometimes you might hear the power steering. A couple other points. If you get your transmission really warm, you might hear a noise just coming to a stop or accelerating away from a stop. That's an auxiliary hydraulic pump in the transmission. That's perfectly normal. It's just basically keeping the driveline speed down and using an electric pump instead of the drive motor to maintain transmission hydraulic pressure.
Okay. I've heard that one.
There's also the contactors, the high voltage battery contactors, which are like some high voltage relays inside the battery pack. So those you'll hear when you first wake up the vehicle, let's say with your keyless entry, or just getting in the driver's seat or pressing the brake pedal. You'll hear the contactors underneath the rear seat. That's
I've heard that. Yeah.
The vehicle connecting the high voltage system. Because of course, when the vehicle's asleep and turned off, the high voltage is isolated from the rest of the high voltage components. Let's see, of course, the one we didn't talk about was the pedestrian alert system. So if the vehicle is driving with the engine off less than 20 miles per hour, then there's the pedestrian alert speakers, one in the front right wheelhouse and one in the spare tire, depending on which direction to travel, or if you're in neutral, they're both on. And that's just to alert either impaired or distracted pedestrians that there's a car coming, so that you don't have a problem. The one last one that you mentioned, Chris, is actually something that I'm kind of surprised about. The clicks and whirs after, I think it's 30 seconds or maybe it's 60 seconds after key off. What that is it's a brake system hydraulic integrity test. And so the electrically boosted hydraulic brakes are pumping pressure into all four of the wheel brakes to make sure that there are no hydraulic system leaks. Because of course, with the regen braking system, just like you can go for a long time without using the gas engine, in some use cases, you might go for a long while without using the hydraulic brakes. And so the system has to make sure that it has good hydraulic system integrity so that it's safe for the next time you operate the vehicle. And that's supposed to be timed for after most customers have exited the vehicle and walked away. But if you're sitting in your vehicle and checking your email after you key off, that is the use case for catching the vehicle in the act on that. And of course, we have to finish that hydraulic system integrity check before, like let's say a mechanic might have enough time to get the wheels off the vehicle and get her fingers into the brake system, because we don't want to be applying the brakes in that situation. So that's the reason why that happens when it happens. In some other vehicles, you might hear HVAC blend doors cycling, other various system diagnostic tests. That's something it's very typical, but again, with less masking of the engine noise, it's sort of we'd say we've lowered the water level, and so some of the tree stumps stick up a little bit higher than they otherwise would. But yeah, those are the standard ones that we just listed.
Nice. Well,
and of course, if you hear anything weird, if you hear anything that makes you uncomfortable, then you should take it to the dealership.
Right, exactly. Or get on the Facebook group and share it with everybody. That's we can do that too. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 5 of Ask the Expert. Thanks to our expert, who represents a team of many, as he quickly points out. And thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us in this video, Dan. And we look forward to episode 6 down the road. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Chris.